Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us for another interview on our Wellness Quality Management Community of Practice. I'm here with Brent. Hi, Brent. Thanks for joining us again.
Hi, Harri. Great to be here.
So it's been a very interesting discussion that we were having about the emotional intelligence and how that helps us to become better at what we do at our job and performance. As you know, our focus in the community of practice is being concentrated on the people aspect and the people domain, and how we as individuals need to have health and well-being so we can help our organization to succeed in their mission and their performance. So in your book, you have a lot of different discussions on well-being, stress management, social satisfaction, and decision-making. And there were a lot of different points that I found to be very interesting and useful for our community. Could you please elaborate more on those for us?
Yeah, we always talk about high-performing teams and high-performing companies. Well, in order to have that, you have to have high-performing people. So it really starts with the individual. And individual levels of happiness are certainly one indicator where you would equate that, or you would correlate that with performance. But there's also that element of stress that comes into play. So you can be generally pretty happy and have a sense of well-being, but it's such a highly stressful, I've seen really highly stress-filled organizations. So you really do have to address that component as well. And it's all those things we know to do, right? It's, are you getting your sleep? Are you eating well? Are you exercising? Which more and more I've been studying a lot about exercise and how it just makes everything better, makes your brain work better, it just makes everything work. So you got to look at all of those different elements to create this sense of well-being in yourself. And then once you've sort of established that and you're doing all the right things for that, then I think we can tweak those elements and get into performance, high levels of mental, physical, and emotional performance. And that's where this stuff really starts getting some business results, when everybody's working at their highest levels of performance. And you also have, like we talked about before, the processes and everything in place to be successful, then you're just running on all 8 cylinders and really doing well in every aspect of this.
In PMBOK 7, they bring it to the front burners. Like, this is how you're going to succeed as a project management team or as a professional manager, when you really work with your team in a nice collaborative fashion. So as you mentioned, the well-being of a person with their health and their stress management and how they look at the different situation is very impactful on how they perform in the team. And tell us more about that emotional self-awareness that you bring in your book and how that plays a role into your happiness.
Yeah, I think, usually it's one of the lower scores in any group, and a lot of individuals score low. And we put a little note on their score that says, start here. If your self-awareness is low, that's the place to begin, because that's going to tell you lots of things. If your self-awareness is really honed to a really fine degree, it's going to tell you when you're tired and probably should take a break, because even the best processes that you have in place, if you're working stressed, you're not going to be efficient in those processes and executing them. So that self-awareness tells you, what your physical, emotional, mental states are in any given moment. And then it's about managing those states. Once you've identified those emotional states and your self-awareness is pretty good, then you got to manage them for better outcomes. So if you're stressed, if you're tired, take a break. Do you need to connect with people? That's another element, and you touched on it. When you talk about performance, it's about really performing as a team. Nobody can do everything themselves. So that human connection is such a vital part. And I'm so glad that they moved that to the front burner, because I think it is vital. And again, here's the progression we usually see in people when we're coaching them over this year-long process is you got to start with self-awareness, and once you start understanding your own emotional states and managing them better, then you're going to start seeing those emotional states in others and recognizing them. And that's empathy, right? So you start with your own self-awareness, then you start being more empathetic. And then once you start being more empathetic and connecting better with those other humans, then your relationship skills get better. So there's that natural progression of self-awareness, empathy, and relationships that we see over and over and over. But it all starts, it's fundamental. Self-awareness is fundamental to all of this work.
Like you said, I mean, maybe it's a 1 year process. It's not just like one lecture or one kind of paragraph reading on a textbook or in a website. It's
Right.
more getting into that coaching and getting into that kind of mentorship program from somebody like you who does it with corporations and teams to better understand it. So one I know we're running out of time and I really want to get into the self-actualization. And I know
Mm-hmm.
that because of the Maslow kind of pyramid, and that's how I learned about
Right.
self-actualization. And can you give us your perspective on it and how can we improve in that?
Well, when I see low self-actualization, I always ask two couple of things. Do you find purpose and meaning in your life and work? And if not, why not? Where are the disconnects? And then do you have a plan? Do you have some type of future vision? It doesn't have to be nailed down. It doesn't have to be, real concrete, but to have that future vision that's filled with connection with others, with helping others, with having a sense of purpose and meaning is really vital. And I think, we don't pay enough attention to that as employers to employees about giving them that sense of purpose and meaning. And it's so funny. Everybody always talks about generational differences. I think we're far more alike than we are different in the different generations. And they always
Right.
say, well, those younger people want to have purpose and meaning. And I think, well, hey, everybody wants to have purpose and meaning.
Exactly.
That's not just for young people. Everybody wants to feel that way. So, and again, this test that we use will measure self-actualization, and we can take a look at what's cause if that's a lower score, what's causing that. And you know what? A lot of times it's low because they're not satisfied with their company or their project. And most of the time the root cause of that dissatisfaction is their boss.
Exactly.
And and so we have to, as an industry, we have to get better at being a good boss. I think there's a lot of folks um, that are driving people from the industry or driving people from their own companies because and I'm not blaming them. I'm not judgmental about them. They put them into these boss positions. They've never had any training, or they haven't learned how to be a good boss. They're usually good at a process, so they're promoted. And now they're
Wow.
managing people and not process, and they fail or they don't do well, or worse, they drive other people away. And I feel for them because they want to do well. They're usually high performers, but they just don't have the skill. And I just tell them this is just a different set of skills.
Right.
Um, so and again, a good boss can really instill in you some self-actualization and give you
Exactly.
that sense of purpose and talk about the meaning behind what you do every day, and really make you feel valued and important. That's going to boost your self-actualization for sure.
Interesting, because I learned that when I became the CEO of this big multinational company, and they were all very experienced civil engineers that got together and formed this company, and thinking just because they're technically competent, now they can own this multinational company.
Right.
And I was like, no, management is beyond just the technical know-how. It's art and science. And
Yeah.
this is what I used to tell them is like, people don't leave their jobs because they don't feel competent in the technical aspect. They leave because they have bad bosses. And usually that's part of the halo effect that we talk about in the PMBOK, to say, just because somebody's good at technical stuff doesn't mean they're going to be a good manager. And
No.
just because they were a manager, now they can't be just promoted to a director level because they have different functions, they have different relations, they have different way
Exactly.
of looking things. So these are great topics that you brought in. And the self-actualization discussion, I always looked at it from Stephen Covey's perspective. If you remember his book, The Eighth Habit, a lot of people
Hmm.
know about the seventh habits, but 7 habits of the effective people. But the eighth habit was a separate book just on this topic, how you can work on your spiritual quotient and how you can find your voice in this world and how can you
Yes.
have a good impact. And I love that book. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't know of it. And I try to promote it as much. And another thing that I do with my mentees is I tell them, go create your ikigai. Ikigai is the Japanese word of happiness and fulfillment in your
Yeah.
life and that purpose that you're looking for. And if you really know what makes you happy and how you're going to be happy at your work, you're going to pick the right position. You're going to form and move to that right position as you move in the organization and you show your competencies, because there are so many different things that you can do in an organization. And as you show your interest and your competency, people find the right fit for you in the team. So I'm definitely sure of that. So for next time when
Yeah.
we
I
meet.
mean, relationships drive everything, really.
Mhm,
I mean,
mhm,
people with they're good social networks, they live longer, they're healthier.
mhm,
They that's going to sort of be the part and parcel to your career path. It's all about your connections and your relationships and who you know and what you've cultivated over the years. It
mhm,
does drive everything. And if you're not very good at that, or you don't have a great social network,
mhm.
then I would say work on that, because that's going to
Yes.
be really important, not only for your career but for
Mhm.
your life as well.
Yes.
It's
Mhm.
it's everything. And
Definitely.
I
Mhm,
think we don't put enough emphasis on it, on
mhm,
how to do it and how to be good at it. And
yes,
again, we have evaluation that can tell you how good you
mhm,
are at those things. And then we've got some really good resources to
mhm.
get better.
And I've seen these two sides always fighting each other, performance versus relations. Before, and I tell them it's a balance of the two. It's a
Yeah.
creating some kind of harmony and optimum kind of balance between you're good at your performance, I'm sure of that. But if you go too high, focusing on performance and then not building the relations and not building trust with your team, I mean, to some extent, you're going to grow, but then everybody's going to try to stop you
Yeah.
because they
It'll
don't
hit a
trust
wall
you.
for sure. Yeah.
Exactly. Definitely. This was great. Thank you, Brent, again.
Sounds great, Harri. Thanks so much for
Okay.
having me.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
All right. Bye bye.